As the allegations continue to mount, should Harvey Weinstein be worried that he might end up behind bars? Joining me now, Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge, welcome back to the show.
Oh, of course. Good to be with you.
So this is no longer a gossipy, salacious story.
Right.
There's some real legal jeopardy here for the crumbling movie titan.
Well, there very well could be. I say very well because it depends on what the evidence is. The government in the United States, he's not in the United States now, but the government here in New York.
We're hearing conflicting reports. We're hearing some reports that he's flown abroad and others that he's checked into a sex rehab somewhere in the country.
Well, we can talk about extradition if you like, but let's talk about prosecution.
Yeah.
If it were in New York or California or really any of the 50 states, if it's he said, she said, and nothing more, the government is not going to prosecute. The government needs some corroborating evidence. It could be an admission made to a colleague. It could be a complaint by the victim at or about the time of the alleged rape. It needs to be something more than, oh, by the way, I was raped 5 years ago. Now, there's no statute of limitations on rape in New York since 2006. There's no statute of limitations on rape in California since 2016.
That could be problematic for him if these stories are true.
Yes.
And in Ronan Farrow's piece for The New Yorker, he says that each one of the victims that he talked to told a parent, partner, or friend. So in each one of those cases, I don't know if that's enough, but they also, many of them signed non-disclosure agreements and made cash and accepted cash settlements from the Weinstein company.
A non-disclosure agreement could prevent them from speaking to the press about it, but it will not prevent them from speaking to a grand jury or speaking to the police. The non-disclosure agreement is moot and useless in the face of a criminal prosecution. There's also another series of crimes here for which there's a 5-year statute of limitations, and that's criminal sexual assault. Without getting too graphic, criminal sexual assault is an unwanted, unconsented to touching where you're not entering the body. That is a lot easier to prove than rape, which requires the government to prove force and resistance. Force by the perpetrator, resistance by the victim.
Okay, but you had the recording that we've now heard where the model was wearing a wire and confronted Harvey Weinstein the day after he allegedly groped her. And, you know, it's a pretty chilling recording. Cy Vance, who's the Manhattan DA, said, hey, there just wasn't enough there. However, other prosecutors who have worked in New York City in special victims units have said, no, there's plenty there.
I am with the other prosecutors on that, having heard the tape. That is enough, combined with credible evidence. Of course, I haven't examined the victim, but assuming the victim is credible, that information is enough certainly to get an indictment and certainly to get to a jury. Whether the jury believes it or not is another story. I don't know why Cy Vance, who's a politician but also a serious prosecutor, decided not to bring the case. And now there's a great dispute between the NYPD, the police, who wanted to bring the prosecution, and Cy Vance, who said no.
Yeah, and Cy Vance's side is sort of faulting the police, saying we didn't have access to the witness. We would have coached her and told her exactly what we needed from this perpetrator.
Well, look, there are a lot of complaints about him. Sexual harassment, using words with no touching, even with a quid pro quo, even in the workplace, is wrong, is horrible, is actionable, but it's not a crime. The only crimes come about when there's touching, of which there are many complaints.
There's so many complaints, there's so many cases, and it sounds like he had a serial MO. You know, there was the bathrobe, there was the hotel room,
yes,
there was showering and massages, and it sounds like he did. Is that pattern? Does that somehow add into either the charges or the length of time that he might get if he were convicted?
Yes. Yes, it does. Because if he's convicted of a single count of either criminal sexual assault, touching in a sexual way without entering the body, or rape, we know what that is, the government can bring in at the time of sentencing what's known as prior bad acts to show the pattern of behavior. Now, if half of the complainants in this now burgeoning case are credible, there are many, many, many prior bad acts, and prior can actually be subsequent bad acts. It means prior to the time of sentencing. So all of that, yes, can come into play. He has a lot of legal problems confronting him, and I don't know where it's going to go. If he's in Europe, that adds an enormous complication to this, and I'll tell you why. If somebody in New Jersey is wanted by Pennsylvania, the only issue is this the person that Pennsylvania wants? Yes, they go. But if somebody in France or Poland, or Switzerland. I picked those countries intentionally because the Roland Polanski case is wanted in the U.S. The issue is not merely, is this the person that is wanted? The issue is, would we prosecute this here? And if we prosecuted it here on the basis they have there, would there be a conviction here? There is virtually a rehearsal of the trial in the state where the defendant, a putative defendant, is located before the extradition happens. That's how Roman Polanski has survived without ever being extradited in nearly 40 years. Because every time they had one of these proceedings in Europe under European rules, but using American evidence, he wasn't convicted.
Unbelievable. All right, we'll see how the story unfolds. So many layers and continuing stories and allegations coming out. Judge, thank you so much for your legal insight.
You're welcome.
Fantastic.